Right-wing media causes death when used as directed. 3 times yesterday, I was watching the news. Usually on Sunday mornings, Louise and I go out of our way to watch Fareed Zakaria in particular. But we watched, or half watched, eating breakfast, sitting around talking, whatever, a couple of hours of TV news yesterday. And at least 3 times, somebody wondered out loud. One of them was Alex Witt talking to Anthony Fauci on MSNBC. Why is it that these hospital workers, people who are actually watching people die, are refusing to get vaccinated? Why is it that 60 million Americans are refusing to get vaccinated? And everybody treats it like it's some kind of baffling question with no real easy answer. There is a really easy answer, and that is the right-wing media ecosystem dominated by Fox so-called news and social media and echoing 1,500 right-wing English language and a couple of hundred right-wing Spanish language radio stations across the country have decided that, people dying and being disabled is both profitable and politically advantageous for them. I mean, right up until January 20th, when Joe Biden became, who was inaugurated as president, it took over the White House. Well, actually, up until probably the first week of January, Republicans have been all over this. Oh, Donald Trump, he brought us the vaccine. Isn't he a wonderful guy? Yes, get out there, get vaccinated. It's a good thing. We put millions of dollars into that Moderna vaccine. It's a fine thing. You need to get vaccinated. Rupert Murdoch was first in line. He jumped the line, in fact. That kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, as Joe Biden becomes president on January 20th, it's like, oh my God, I don't want those vaccines. Don't give me no vaccine. Don't give me no mask mandate, no vaccine. Why? Because they figured that if they could keep the virus stirring, if they could keep the economy in as a consequence of an ongoing pandemic, that would hurt the Democrats in the 2022 and 2024 elections. It's very strange. And they're not rebutting it. I mean, this is just very straightforward stuff. Death is their political strategy. And then, as if to put a punctuation point on it, the headline over Raw Story this morning was, Fox News host uses Colin Powell's death to launch anti-vax, quote, fully vaccinated are dying of COVID. So just for, when your crazy brother-in-law texts you today or you see it on Facebook or whatever, Colin Powell had multiple myeloma, which is, I'm no medical expert here, but from what I've been reading in news reports, is basically cancer of the white blood cells, or cancer that involves the white blood cells, which is your immune system. So he had cancer of the immune system. And number one, just the treatment for cancer, and you use chemo, kills your immune system. And number two, he had cancer of the immune system. Yes, he was fully vaccinated. Yes, he died of complications of COVID. When they say complications of, they typically mean they died of a heart attack or they died of a stroke, but it was because of some giant clot that was thrown off by the COVID. We don't know the details with Colin Powell, but I think that's a reasonable guess. But it doesn't mean that being fully vaxxed doesn't protect you. Being fully vaxxed is a big deal. It does protect you, but it just doesn't protect everybody. In particular, it doesn't protect people like Colin Powell who are fighting cancer, particularly cancer of the immune system, which is why we need to get everyone vaxxed so that people like Colin Powell don't get infected. But, don't tell that to Fox so-called news. More than almost 750,000 Americans, I think it's 717,000 today, have died of COVID. And there's this amazing study, I believe I shared this with you Thursday or Friday of last week, that was by the Journal of the American Medical Association, or one of the journals that they own. It's a subsidiary journal. That said that according to this study that was done on several 100,000 people who were diagnosed with COVID. Now, these were not people necessarily who were hospitalized or even had severe cases. Half of the 45 million Americans who've been diagnosed with COVID will probably suffer long-term consequences, according to the study. The main consequences being dementia, exhaustion, and damage to the heart and kidneys. I'm kind of wondering out loud if this disability that's being caused by this avalanche of COVID infections in the United States. I mean, we've got more infections per person than any other developed country in the world. Way out there. I mean, we are so far ahead of everybody else. We have about a quarter of all the COVID infections in the world, and we got 4% of the world's population. Because of Trump, because of Trump's policies, because Trump tried to bravado his way through a pandemic, hoping that it would keep the economy open so he'd get himself reelected. And you know, it was a bet that it didn't pay off for him. So here we have this disease. It's killing all these people. And it's being promoted. The idea of remaining vulnerable or getting sick is being promoted by right-wing media. You know, it used to be an American business that you knew where the psychopaths were. They were in the tobacco industry. Everybody knew it. This is a product that kills 500,000 Americans every year, tobacco. And back in the 1990s, you know, through a series of lawsuits, we discovered that tobacco had known since the 30s that their product was killing people. And since the 50s, how addictive their product was, and they just covered it up. And I would argue that those tobacco CEOs, like I said, you know, we used to know where the past were. They were in the tobacco industry. 500,000 Americans a year dying from tobacco is about 1,300 people a day. And knowing every day that the product that you're selling caused 1,300 people to die and still being able to sleep at night probably means you're a psychopath. Psychopaths have no empathy, no remorse. They don't experience guilt. They have the lack of the ability to feel empathy. And here comes this report this week. The Hollywood Reporter interviewed the CEO of Fox News, who said, I sleep well at night. Right, just like the tobacco CEOs. Meanwhile, the people who are watching Fox and its imitators all across the various right-wing media are taking the implicit advice of Fox's primetime hosts and avoiding getting vaccinated. And guess what? They're getting sick and dying. This morning on NPR here in Portland, there was a long report about how every blue county in Oregon has vaccination rates over 75% and very, very few deaths. And every red county in Oregon has lower vaccination rates. I forget the number. 44% sticks in my head, but don't quote me on that. But very much. And it is experiencing the majority of the deaths and hospitalizations. It is, I mean, literally, it has to do with which counties voted for Trump and which counties voted for Biden. And it's because these people are watching Fox News and other right-wing media, and they're, you know, who are promoting to them that ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are better than getting a vaccine, and, you know, they're dying. So when we realized with the tobacco industry in the 90s, as a result of all these lawsuits, that they were intentionally killed to make money. And Fox News, by the way, represents now about 80% of all the profits for the Murdoch empire, which is pretty mind-boggling, or at least for the U.S. portion of it. And when we realized that the tobacco barons were willing to let people die just to keep making money, we took action. We put a warning label on their product. So, you know, now that right-wing media has arguably caused more deaths in America in the past 12 months than has tobacco, is it time to label it somehow? Now, I get it. We've got the First Amendment. You can't restrict the media the way that you can restrict tobacco. But at the very least, tell people, you know, hashtag right-wing media causes death, right? When used as directed, which is the whole thing with tobacco. I think, you know, it's time to start, right? It's time to take this seriously. We have a media ecosystem that has caused hundreds or has been peripheral or direct in causing hundreds of thousands of Americans to die and millions of Americans to become disabled. Shouldn't we at the very least label it?